What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm just enjoying a beautiful Monday afternoon stroll in my semi-retirement, taking care of my baby girl, going for a walk. And if I stop walking, she starts crying. So this is going to be a bumpy road. But I really want to multitask. So, you got to be able to squeeze lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. And that's what I'm doing right now, multitasking and making sure that I push out content. Let's talk a little bit about Palantir. In general, let's talk a little bit about Palantir. Palantir has been in business for 2 decades. People don't know that. Palantir might have just recently had an IPO, or DPO, I'm sorry, direct public offering, not to be confused with an IPO, initial public offering. And they had their DPO recently, right? Palantir's DPO was in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. But they've been around for 20 years now. 20 years. That's no small feat. So a lot of people comment about Palantir like, oh, Palantir sucks. Palantir had a really bad week. Palantir had a really bad month, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Palantir retreated from $20, currently trading at around $14.50. But if you zoomed out for the last year, Palantir is actually up around 50%. And if you zoom out even more, people are going to say, well, Palantir hit a high of 45. Yes, Palantir hit a high of 45. However, if you go from DPO, they DPO'd at $10. Palantir right now trading at around $14.50. Palantir is actually up 45% all time, if you think about it, right? 45%, $14.50 on the initial $10. And we're doing much better than companies like Snowflake, for example, which is down from all time, or C3AI, which is down from all time. You see, Palantir had really humble beginnings. Palantir started working with the United States government. There was a need for counterterrorism and essentially to keep our boys safe. Because of that, they developed something called Palantir Gotham. But the most interesting thing, for 3 years, they were developing a product. It took them 3 years to develop a product and actually go to market. So for 3 years, they had investors. For 3 years, venture capitalists. For 3 years, people were shitting and hating on Palantir, not knowing if Palantir is going to make a profit whatsoever, if Palantir was even capable of making a profit whatsoever. In the beginning, and now, Palantir has, is, and will be funded by the United States military and by other governments and militaries around the world. But what do I mean by that? Do I mean like they actually get contracts with those companies? What do I mean by funding? So there's a official funding of, the 3-letter agencies called In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel is a U.S. Venture capitalist that they invest in companies that are good for the United States, technology companies that are good for the United States. And they're the ones that initially gave funding, partial funding, to Palantir. That's essentially how Palantir is Palantir. Now, besides for that funding, and besides for actually getting contracts from the military, research and development, R&D. So, research and development for Palantir are not high. And the question is, why? Where does the research and development for Palantir happen? How are they able to be so lean? Well, the answer is really simple. On-job training, or research and development on the battlefield. You see, when you have a war, and Palantir is part of that war, Palantir software is being used in that war, they are research and developing for commercial use cases in the future. Right now, Palantir in Ukraine is doing on-job training, research, and developing for commercial use cases in the future. Probably a lot of commercial use cases in Ukraine in the future. People have this misconception about Palantir that they're no good for commercial or they're useless for commercial. In fact, that's quite the opposite. They're one of the most powerful utilized tools for some of the biggest companies in the entire world. The problem is not is Palantir effective, but do you need a bazooka for something that a knife can handle? Something like that. It's too powerful. Now, a lot of people are going to hate, a lot of people are going to laugh and be like, yeah, we heard that before. But in reality, Palantir is not for every organization. Palantir is fantastic for government use, for these big overhauls, for these big campaigns, for example, like the COVID campaign and personal protective equipment, and refugees, and all these interesting endeavors that need to be done like the last minute lickety split. But the question is, how does Palantir scale down? How does Palantir end up going to the masses? You see, why is Snowflake growing essentially faster? Because Snowflake is able to have a really good sales team, and Snowflake's software solves certain problems. But they're not an empire builder, right? They're not an entire Save Ukraine campaign. They're not an entire let's figure out what to do with the refugees. They're not an entire how do we win this war. They're not an entire how do we coordinate and save lives with this potentially Armageddon disease we at the time thought was or possibly was COVID. No, you see, Snowflake is not that. Snowflake is you have a specific problem for your small, mid-sized, or large cap commercial business, and Snowflake figures out how to use your data to fix that problem. But they don't have a digital twin. They don't have crazy recommendations. And for sure, they don't have large language models, not just yet. So the question with Palantir is quite simple. Can Palantir slim down? Can Palantir hit the masses? Does Palantir have the ability to offer a leaner version of Palantir? Maybe instead of doing everything that Palantir can do, a specific thing. So instead of let's use Adobe. So instead of offering an entire Adobe suite, like a Palantir suite, they'll offer just Adobe Photoshop, or they'll offer just like Adobe Rush, or so on and so forth. And Palantir needs to figure out a way to do that. But if it's me, I'd rather be in a position of trying to figure out how to slim down and have immense capabilities than have limited capabilities and figure out how to get bigger and provide more services and being able to give more to my customers. So what's going to be the future of Palantir? And how do they slim down? For me, it's pretty simple. And I think that they're already starting to do that. And the answer is AIP, Artificial Intelligence Platform. So, as I said, research and development, staying slim, so on and so forth. The question is, how do you offer a product that essentially is not going to cost you much to figure out or create, and cross-sell it to existing customers or increase new customers? The answer is AIP. Probably OpenAI is the saving grace of Palantir, believe it or not. It's so crazy how shit works. So AIP currently is the artificial intelligence platform for Palantir, where they introduce large language models specifically for your data, specifically for your use cases. You see, a lot of people don't understand you can't use ChatGPT for your specific business, especially if you have sensitive information. You for sure can't use ChatGPT for military use, right? So the question is, how do you do this? You need to have protection on your data, which is going to be Palantir AIP. Now, Palantir AIP, 100 clients are already using it. They're going to introduce it to over 300 more, bringing it to over 400 different clients are going to be testing Palantir AIP. Let me go down this alley right here. Who are the 400? Well, it's interesting that Palantir says over 400, or 100 plus over 300. That's going to be 400. That's essentially Palantir's existing clientele base of 421 current clients. Think about that. The effort is small, the offering is large, and the potential for profit is huge. Of the 421 clients, the top 20 clients bring in $53 million, okay? Of the rest of the clients, trailing 12 months, they bring in around $2.8 million. I did the math before. If Palantir can just onboard 10% of that 400 clients, that's 40 times 2.8 million. That brings in over $100 million more of revenue. Think about that. It's absolutely freaking massive. An extra $100 million worth of revenue on top of the money they already bring in, right? It's massive numbers. Even if they do 10 clients on board or 20 clients on board, it's still big numbers. It's not like small numbers. And I believe, and many people from the Palantir community believe, that this is the future of Palantir. This is how Palantir is going to take us to the next level. This is how Palantir is going to expand. And this is how Palantir is going to make a shit ton of money and increase their revenue. Now, if you believe Dr. Alex Karp, we build for 5 years ahead. If you hear some of his interviews, he was kind of talking about things like this, you know? And specifically talking about building 5 years ahead. So he says, while other companies and people are criticizing, like, well, a lot of companies are jumping on the bandwagon of artificial intelligence, how they can have LLMs, how LLMs are the future. Where's their rollouts? Where the F are your rollouts? They ain't there. Meanwhile, Palantir, literally from announcing artificial intelligence platform, a month later, they have AIPCon #1. About a month ago, which is like 3 months later, they ended up having AIP demo, which I filmed live on my channel, which is absolutely mind-boggling and mind-blowing that most people didn't watch, but it's an amazing presentation. And now they're going to have AIPCon #2. You got to ask yourself a question. How is Palantir able to roll out so fast, so quickly, so efficiently, not with a minimum viable product, but in actuality, a fully working product? You got to ask yourself that, right? And for me, the answer is quite simple. What I've been saying the entire, video. Research and development on the battlefield. They had all of this large language models a while ago. And they probably started developing this on the battlefield. And because they developed it on the battlefield, they're now allowed to, or can, or have the capability to allocate this for commercial use cases. Guys, I don't know what's going to end up happening in the future. Palantir right now is trading at 1450. I'm not even mad at that. If Palantir is going to drop to, I don't know, 10s or less, I'll probably start buying. Every single week, I sell covered calls on Palantir. I'm super excited. Literally, I sold for $240 earlier today. That's just in my, public account. And every week I make like $240 to $408 just selling covered calls on my public account. And I sell covered calls on other stocks. But anyways, that's completely something else. Guys, the future is bright for Palantir. NVIDIA is going to do earnings on Wednesday. It's going to be a very good gauge how the artificial intelligence is doing. And if artificial intelligence is a bubble or artificial intelligence is here. We'll see what ends up happening. A lot of people bitched and complained when Palantir was at $20. They begged on their knees, crying like little biatches, that they hope the price goes down. The same exact people, 99%, are not going to buy when the price goes down. Guess what's going to happen? The price is going to go up. They ain't going to buy. They're just going to bitch. And then a lot of people get left behind. I don't know when that aha moment's going to happen, but I know that Palantir had a quick double up not too long ago, right? Literally, it ran up, I believe, from May, if I'm not mistaken. It had a quick double up. I'm not mad at $14.50. I'm not mad at $15. I obviously want to see $20. But for me, it doesn't matter. Up or down, I'm giving Palantir another year from where we are right now. You see, in 2022, when I started my bet with Chris Patel, I told him I would give Palantir a year by the end of 2023, even though they had bad earnings and shit, to see if Palantir pans out, if they're able to do stuff. And you know what? They did. AIP is that panning out. Well, now I'm going to give them another year to see if AIP is going to work out and actually translate to revenue and increase revenue growth. Because at the end of the day, 13% revenue growth, it's not it. However, as long as they're growing in products or growing in some other way, it kind of compensates for the revenue. And all these AIP software that they're signing up. It takes a while to sign people up. They're probably giving people a shit ton of discounts, and hopefully start small so these companies see how important AIP is, and in the future increase the contracts, therefore increasing the revenue, the same way they did with PPP and COVID with the US, PPP and COVID with NHS. If you guys are unaware, they started with a $1 and £1 contract respectively, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars now. And that's the hope right here, the high hope. The high hope is that artificial intelligence is here, it's here to stay, and AIP is a world beater, and AIP is a secret weapon for customers to have. And if you don't have AIP, you're kind of screwed, therefore making AIP one of the most important softwares platform that you can possibly have. Guys, thank you so much. I want to say I appreciate you guys listening to me for the last 12 minutes. Have a great day. I'm going to go feed my daughter in a little bit. Maybe get myself some water or a nice coffee. And yeah, have a good day.